Welcome to part 2 of our conte video. In this video we'll be doing a time-lapse demonstration of drawing up an image board, filling out an conte, and demonstrating a director check of the conte. I'll be playing the part as the storyboard artist or the conte man, and Will is going to be the series director or kantoku. Since we have the scenario completed, the next step is to move on to the image board.
I'll be drawing this as an image board that also functions as a background sheet to save some time. Most image boards are actually a bit more brainstormy in concept and include stuff like color as well. I'm starting here with a real floor plan that I picked up from an image search to give the room size more reality. I then run through and draw the general locations of the furniture and change a couple of things about the room layout for our convenience. On the actual drawing, I'm starting here placing the eye level on the high side so we can see more of the floor plane of the room. Then I draw the basic box of the room and start the furniture by drawing it against the rear plane and extrapolating the forms forward from it. This helps get the size right, which is much more important than detailing steps that come later. Here, I'm detailing the room, thinking about how she would use it in order to logically place items. Lastly, I add a character silhouette so that we know the scale of everything. Then I'm going to add some shadows to get an idea for what the morning light shining in through the windows might look like.
Now that the image board is done, it's time for the storyboard artist to make the conte. Having received the image board and the script, I can get started on the conte. Here in the beginning, you can see me laying out the establishing shot. Here I'm changing the panning notation to black instead of colored because that's more standardized. Here you can see me trying to figure out how to depict the alarm clock scene. It turns out what was originally proposed in the scenario was too difficult. So I decided to completely get rid of the alarm clock and her stepping up out of bed scene and replace it all by implying what's happening from a view by the foot of her bed. On the teeth brushing scene, I got a little caught up trying to properly draw her hair. I don't know what the mascot's hair looks like when it's out of a ponytail. I decided to move on from this though because as long as the actions are conveyed in the conte, the art can be decided on later. Here I wanted to show her putting up her hair in front of a mirror over the shoulder was the only way that I could think of at the moment. Here you can see me placing in a photo of the Japanese animation table to make sure that it was accurate. I then realized that I needed to probably show her putting her hat on, so I added in a cut for that. Finally, I draw her sitting down at her desk and starting to draw. The drawing part of the conte is finished, so at the end I'm going back through and adding in the cut and timing information.
The first thing I did starting out was take another look at our pre-production outline, where we wrote all of our goals for the short. I'll be running through all of the cuts for technical correction, but also to make sure every cut reflects what we're trying to accomplish. After a quick read-through chronologically, I begin fixing this pan/zoom notation to pan/tu, the standard notation. We'll be doing a separate video series about notations to introduce the most common ones, which should be useful to new animators. There are two big pieces of information in this first cut, the pan over to Emily sleeping and the alarm clock going off, so I extended the length to allow the audience to observe both. On cut 2, I changed the length to be a multiple of 3. Animation is most commonly done on 2s and 3s, so having arbitrary cut lengths not only makes it difficult to add up and manage the total length of a work, but it also means that a cut animated on 2s can get the last frame cut off on a 1, etc. For cut 3, a simple repeat would suffice, so I cut down the length so it wouldn't end up looking too repetitive. And then I added some of that time onto cut 4, where 1 second is a bit too short unless it's for intense action. Many action directors consider 18 frames to be the fastest possible time for a cut to register, even during action scenes. So for slower stuff, it's better to allow the audience more time for the cut to sink in. On the second page, I realized that if I left the cuts as they are, that there would be a continuity error. In this 3-cut sequence, each of the cuts are connected by the character motion. This is known as an action cut, denoted AC. This strings the shots together by their poses as part of the same sequential movement, but the character goes from being in front of a mirror to in front of her desk. In order to solve this, I changed it to a close-up that doesn't reveal where the character is exactly and removed the action cuts. This allows for that implied time lapse that we used earlier with the bed-to-bathroom cut. Also, since the camera was going over the line of action in cut 5, I changed the direction that Emily is facing to go with the rest of the cuts. The line of action, to put it simply, is an imaginary line that the camera should stay behind during most sequences in order to make the continuity easier to understand for the viewer. It exists as a horizontal line parallel to the horizon line that connects all of the characters in a scene together. You should avoid placing the camera outside of the 180 degrees side that you start on. That actually sounds like kind of a mouthful, so to put it even more simply, MC starts out stage left, so we keep her stage left for better readability between all of the shots. We'll put a link in the description about the 180 degree rule, so you guys can check it out at your own pace. Lastly, since one of the things we wrote in our pre-production was excitement, I tried to make a slow-graded build of how high energy each cut was up until the final climactic cut, where she sits down to animate. There are tons of great videos out there to explain plot and building to a climax better than I ever could, but I did my best to incorporate those principles, even for something that ends up only being 30 seconds. This skip-on notation that I wrote here for cut 7 means that the camera follows the character through the cut. It's technically a different kind of pan called a memory pan, but I'll get into the specific differences between all of these in the layout video. Almost all storyboard artists don't differentiate between these types of pans for storyboard and just write skip-on for everything whenever the camera follows a cell. So we'll do the same here for now. Lastly, I added a cut of the channel logo like it was an opening sequence. It might be. Totaled the corrected time, and then we're done. Overall, I tried to keep the drawing side of everything very loose to not use cruder language, and tried to focus on the cut type, composition, timing, and direction for the corrections. Hopefully, you'll see how this contrasts to how the layout artist thinks later on.
And that concludes our section on conte. We plan on making a video about conte notation in the future, so keep an eye out for that. If you like our content, please subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, please support us on Patreon if you'd like to see us continue making content. Our Patreon also supports another project of ours, sakugafoundry.com, which we're hoping will one day be a meeting place for people who want a part in creating Japanese-style animation. We're hoping to get through this whole series by the end of the year. Any support will help us get our videos out sooner. Our next video in this series will be taking the conte from this video into the layout and first key stage, or layout to daiichi genga in Japanese.